Howdy folks, and welcome back to another exciting video. Today we are back on my grandfather's GMC 3500 long bed single wheel. Now this thing's been sitting since 1995, and recently I got it running after bringing it home. Now I've been out of the family since the 80s, and my dad told plenty of stories about this truck, but now we're gonna get it back out, get it back on the road where it belongs, and maybe freshen her up a little bit. So stick around to the end of the video and see, can we achieve just that? My grandfather used to daily drive this truck back in the 70s and 80s, and my dad has plenty of stories and plenty of seat time behind the wheel of this GMC Longhorn. And when he sold it in the 80s, it stayed just a short distance away from my house this entire time. And the new owner, he used it as his own daily driver for many years until parking it around 1995. Unfortunately, the previous owner passed away, but he wanted my family to get the truck back, and it took quite a bit of time and effort to get this massive 1-ton out of its grave. We replaced all 4 tires for some new 295 50s, and I had to remove some trees that were growing through the bed. And once we got it up on all 4s, we pulled it from its resting place to be loaded up on the trailer. So I brought it back to my parents' house because at the time I hadn't even built my new shop at this point. And once we got it unloaded, it was time to make it run for the first time in nearly 30 years. So in the last video on this truck, I did buy 4 brand new tires, and I stole all of them because I had projects that needed 295 50s. We still got a pretty decent set on the front. We had to put 16.5s on it that came off the truck. We brought wheels and tires that we're going to put on the rear of this thing so we can get it up on the trailer. The biggest problem is that this thing is locked up tight. So we're going to try our best to get this on here without having to break anything, but you never know. So let's jack this rear up real quick. She's in there. Oh, wow. That's a heavy wheel. Oh man, golly. I hope these go on, please. I know they're the same bolt pattern, but it would be really nice if you would work with me. Oh great, I gotta go higher. I don't know if I got any more left in this thing. Okay, there we go. Thank you, truck. Much appreciated.
Oh, that looks so tall on it.
I know. Got the mud grips on her. Now will this jack come out? Aha! Whoa, that's a hole.
Oh my gosh.
Wow. I didn't stop falling. I forgot I had these. These are my Pinto wheels. Oh.
You barely see you.
We out here. Oh. You know, for not driving this truck, I've changed the wheels and tires on it about 4 times. And I've never once had it on the road.
That's gotta be a record.
What does that say about me as a person?
Bad.
Oh my gosh. Why are these so heavy? Oh. I can't back up, there's a hole falling in it. Are these 16.5s or 15s? I had 2 sets. Yeah, these are the ones that were on it.
Very healthy looking.
Get out of here. Put some Dodge wheels on it, it'll run better.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, yes it will.
I'm falling in the hole. Dang. I'm afraid there's something living in there that's going to come out and get me. Heck yeah. On the ground with 4 tires. Let's go. Why is this truck so long?
Well, it is an extended long bed.
Oh. There was poop in there.
Ooh.
Sliding. It's sliding.
This side over here is turning.
Oh, is it? This side's locked. Go ahead. That was rolling.
Front and rear are both rolling on this side.
So it's just this one. Okay, good. Go ahead. Hopefully Dad don't mind if we do a little landscaping here. He'll just be glad to see the truck doing something. We're not going far, so it'll be all right. Whew, she's scrubbing there. Yeah. Oh, brother. Oh. It'll come off. All right, good news. We've got the truck inside, and it honestly isn't as bad as I remember it being. Yes, it does have a locked up brake, but I mean, rust-wise, the only rust I know about is just a couple small spots in the rocker. Not bad in the grand scheme of things. In the bedside, straight as an arrow, just needs to have a good cleaning. So what I'd like to do, get this brake unlocked right here, because once we do that, I mean, we've heard it run. It's been a couple years since it did run. But once we do that, we can actually get this thing to where we can move it around. I want to pop the hood because I don't remember if I left a carburetor on it or not, but let's just see what we've got going on. Oh, come on, lift. Oh, hey, look, an engine. Okay, so it's all still intact. I couldn't remember exactly what was all going on up under here, but everything looks to be still there just like we left it. So this carburetor, I didn't even try it. I just know that it was not looking too good. So I had actually replaced it with another Quadrajet I had just to get it running. That's not the same one, is it? No, it's not. I think I put the original one back on it, but it's not locked up. So we can, it's loose, so we can try and rebuild this thing before we get too crazy with it. But, you know, maybe it's not even bad. I don't know. But again, it's been sitting since '95, so I wouldn't expect much out of this thing. But the good news is that it did run and it idled very well. So if we can get it to run again, then all we have to do is get that brake unstuck, and we can probably try the transmission. I know it will come out of gear. It'll go into gear, so that's a good thing, at least a good step in the right direction. I am so excited to see this truck back in here. I don't remember much about what we did and didn't do. I'll have to go back and consult the video, but the truck itself, like I said, it's really not bad. It's got, like I said, a little rust right here in the rockers. We can do some stuff with that, but overall, not a bad truck. I have to get the smell of whatever is going on in here out, because it smells horrendous in here. But at least the clutch seems to do things. Oh, the brake pedal, hard as a rock. Regardless, we've got some progress to be made here. I'm loving to see it in the shop though. And to sit as long as it has, the door doesn't sag, surprisingly. And it shuts so well. No resistance whatsoever. Well, it's a mess over here, but I went ahead and pulled the carburetor off of the truck, and it was okay. It's actually better than I had anticipated, but everything is just old. I mean, the gasket even came off in one piece, surprisingly. The needle and seat looks really good. Like, surprisingly, the rubber isn't terribly worn, but we're going to replace it regardless. Just, I mean, it was like 20 bucks to get a rebuild kit, so it doesn't hurt to just go ahead and have everything brand new on the inside. But, you know, overall, we've seen way worse carburetors, but it's a good thing we tore it apart because, as you can see, there is trash in the bottom of the carburetor itself in the bowl. So, and the main jets were stopped up. So even if we did try to fire this thing up, it probably would not have run very well or at all, if that matters. So I'm going to flip it over and take the base off, but I wanted you guys to see this trash before I took it out. So let's flip this thing. See how much comes out. Oh yeah, see, all of that would have been in just our fuel. So go right in straight to the engine and probably recirculate somewhere and make a mess. And the good news is I have no clue where this spring went. I think it went right there. Yes, cool. And when I flipped this over, I went to take this screw out. This one was loose already. So that's not good. That was a vacuum leak that we would have never found at all. And eventually that could have backed out and even fell down in the engine. So that would have been terrible. All right, we've got our 3 pieces. Just rip that off there. Sweet. So now we can just dedicate a bunch of time cleaning everything, getting this thing looking a lot better. There we go. Let's see how that looks. Looks like a carburetor. Now we have a mess. We've got to figure out how to put this thing back together. I've rebuilt quite a many carburetors, and Quadrajets, they're a little bit finicky with just getting the top plate off and then especially getting it back on and getting it lined up. But man, when they run very, very well. There we go, it's all finished. Quadrajets can be a little finicky with getting like all the rods and everything stuck down in the jets themselves, but once it's all together, you know, it goes back together pretty easily. We just had to line up every little tiny detail and every little linkage to make it work. The hardest part's really getting the choke lever operation, because you have to take the linkage off on this side, finish rebuilding it, and then slide the lever back down into the top and then lock the lever back in on the choke itself. So it's a little bit awkward, but once it goes in, it's, you know, you've done it once, you've done it a million times. So I've rebuilt a couple of these. It's just, whew, every time I take one apart, I always remember how much more difficult they are than most carburetors. But it is back together, and again, it looked very clean on the inside. So I'm hoping that this thing will actually come together and run fairly decently whenever it's all said and done. So I'm gonna go put it back on the truck, see if we can get some fuel to it, try to ignite it. Well, this thing ran probably 2 years ago, and I remember having to rig it up, but I don't remember exactly how I did it. But based on what I see, I know I can crank it over by the solenoid on the starter, and this looks like I'd use this as a hot wire. So I'm gonna just try it, just see what happens and see, does anything happen at all. We'll hook that up. Look, whoa, what are you sparking about? Oh, it's grounded out of the frame. There's a bare connection there. Nice and safe, just the way we like it. Got a little gas here. It's gonna try and, I just wanna see if it'll run. Just hit it all. Because if that is the case, then I can go back through here and fix some things. Let's see, will you hit? That should be more than enough gas, you would think. And with one click of a button, whoa! You know what? You're a little bit dangerous. Why don't we do this? And with one click of the button, I hope it runs. So that did it. Did it sound like it was knocking a little bit?
I don't know what it was.
That was questionable. Oof. Anyway, I know it runs, and it ran really well last time, but that did not sound very pleasant, to be honest with you. But that was the first time it's ran in 2 years. And it's got oil in it. Ew. Doesn't look like that. Well, I mean, I know it's definitely going to need an oil change. So we may go ahead and do that while I'm fixing some wiring. I just have to figure out how to get the ignition switch to work. That's the hard part. But I think a lot of the wires are just broken. Like they're just disconnected or broken. So maybe it's as easier of a fix than I thought. But I know exactly what to do. Well, we wanted to see if my carburetor rebuild actually worked. So we're going to hook up our electric fuel pump here. We've got it going down to this fuel jug. What? Is my fuel pump dead? Say it ain't so. Hola. Anyone home? Well, my electric pump wire has broken, and I'm very sad about it because this thing has been around the block about 3,000 times. So we're gonna fire it up anyway. We're gonna see if it starts leaking. Oh. Hey, it worked. So it should be full now. So let me take this wire and hook it back on here. And we'll try and crank it one more time. This time it ought to idle if the carburetor's okay. It sounds weird, don't it?
Is the key on?
It shouldn't have to be. That's the power wire right there.
Oh my gosh.
It does sound like a vacuum leak, don't it?
Yeah, it's shot a big old cloud of dust off the exhaust.
For real?
Yeah.
I don't know of any other vacuum ports that I didn't plug. Let me try again. I wonder if it's leaking. Oh, wait a minute. There is a vacuum leak right here on the vacuum advance. There's a vacuum leak somewhere right there. How about a little more gas?
That'll solve it.
Yeah. When in doubt, floor it.
Is it leaking?
Yeah.
Ah.
Leaking out of the throttle shaft. But it wasn't doing that when the pump was on, it just did it when I sprayed fuel on it. Did I knock the wire off or something? The starter's about had it. Now how come it runs for just then, but now it's like, no, just kidding, I'm not gonna do it anymore. And it fired right up that first time, no problem. I think we got a weak battery.
No, the Optima.
I cranked on this thing, well, so my Mustang 2 wouldn't crank the other day, and I cranked on it for, I swear, 10 minutes straight, and it was not good. Woo, hot. Woo! I want to get a good look and see if this thing is bad or there's a vacuum leak or something. The accelerator pump doesn't really work that great. Don't really know. Brad's going to pull a spark plug real quick for us and see what's going on. And it's not.
It's dry.
Yeah, it's not like, oh gosh, look at the gap though.
Yeah, it's huge.
That gap, yeah, it's burned up the contacts, or the gap is really wide, so that's not good. We might have to replace those plugs. Yeah, we've got a really weak spark going on, I would bet. That's not good at all. They've got either a lot of miles on them or somebody gapped them incorrectly. All right, so Briar took all 8 spark plugs and broke one of them because they were miserable to get out of there. I mean, he was using a pry bar to crank a couple of them out of there. We only broke one though. So we got them all cleaned up, got the gap proper on all 8, and hopefully this thing will run a little bit better. So spray a little fuel down in there. Let's see, does anything happen? The battery charged up a little bit and it's showing 12.8 volts now. Let's spin faster. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's very loud.
But we couldn't find anything.
Let me see if I can give it a little more fuel. There we go. All right, let's try it again. I'm gonna close the chuck this time. Like it's only running on this fuel right here. That is it. If that's a vacuum leak, that's a problem. I just don't know where it could be leaking from. That port, the back port's plugged, and this one's capped, unless it's broken or something, but I don't see anywhere else that it could be leaking from. I adjusted the mix screws out, or just at least set them 2 screws out, so maybe it'll help it out some. Yeah, then it runs out of fuel. Okay. We can figure out a way to keep fuel doing fuel things. That'd be awesome. Tell you what, maybe I can just switch over while I'm making it run.
But you gotta be fast though.
I gotta be swift. There is no return spring, so. And the exhaust manifold leaks, so every time it cranks, it shoots dirt directly into my eyes. Maybe I need to turn the idle up just a fuzz. That'll keep it running, because it's cold and the choke's not wanting to, the rod keeps popping loose, so the fast idle mechanism isn't wanting to work right. Let me turn it up just a hair. All right, I turned the idle screw up just a couple turns. Don't die. Where that hissing is loud.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That is loud, loud. Keep the fuel to it, it'll run pretty good. May need just a little more timing, but that's not bad. Smooth as a, I mean, it ain't rocking at all, is it? How's the exhaust? Smoking out the exhaust?
Barely. It's blue.
It's burning off some oil on the manifold. Sounds good though.
Yeah.
I saw sparks flying out of something over there. Maybe the exhaust. Yeah, I don't know what that is, but it is a hectic vacuum leak, wherever it's coming from. I hope the intake's not leaking or something. I wonder if the float is set too low. Well, no, I know it's not, because if I add this fuel back to it, like it's barely even low. Yeah, I think we need a little extra timing, because I did crank up the idle screw just a hair, but it's still not enough to keep it running. So we might try and just add a little bit to it. I'm gonna try and adjust the timing on this thing. God. Oh my Lord, it didn't want to move. Oh wow. Okay, I think you're gonna break something before we get too crazy. Here, try this other wrench. There, that's the one. Okay, I think this rotates clockwise. So to add timing, it's going clockwise. We need to rotate it counterclockwise. Whoa.
That's it.
Oh, I forgot the fuel. Oops! Brother, this is a nightmare. This is my worst nightmare revealed. Might need to tighten this back down a little bit because as soon as it cranks, it goes. I don't know. That fan is worn out.
The battery cable's smoking.
Woo. Fine then, don't crank. We tried a couple different things and we sprayed some brake cleaner over around like all the carburetor, and on the base plate right there at the front, there was a leak, I guess, because you could hear it hiss when the RPMs would drop, and then whenever he sprayed the brake cleaner, the RPM came up. So I've got a different base plate here. That was a new one there, but it's got these little hooks in it. I'm wondering if it'll block off like a vacuum port that doesn't need to be there. So we're gonna switch these out and see if that changes anything. We did find all the linkage there. I guess I just never put it back on. See how it's got these extra little ports here? You see any leakage there? Oh, a sizzle, a sizzle. Ah, it's dripping gas.
I guess.
I don't see anything wrong with the gasket itself necessarily, but it's got these little, the difference here, those little hook things that maybe will block off a vacuum leak. I don't know. So let me slide this thing up under here and we'll try it. Oh, is that a washer? No, we're good. There we go. All right, we got a new base plate. Let's try it again.
Doesn't seem as violent.
That was what it was.
Oh, wow.
It's the wrong base plate. Oop. That's all it was. Yeah, I put the wrong one on there. That's good. That's really good. Wow. How about a rev?
Ooh, let's hear it.
Oh yeah. She's good now. Could add maybe a hair. She seems happy right there. That's a solid running motor right there. What a good truck, you know? I love quadrojets. They're just great. They're just awesome. I wonder if we can hit the secondaries.
Uh-oh.
Good truck right there. And dead. Woo! Look at the come here and check out what shot out the exhaust. Had some freshly removed tenants come out the exhaust. That's the thing. I've already had this thing running once and it's still shooting stuff out the exhaust on both sides. That's hilarious. Wow. Listen to that. Our big issue was the mechanical fuel pump, so I replaced it real quick. It's sitting here idling, so I topped it off with coolant. I'm letting it warm up now, and I think it's finally up to temperature. It's a little smoky still. I think we're burning off, getting some rings reseated right now, but sounding good. The temp gauge came up, so you got a little bit of temperature, and the oil pressure, it comes up when you rev it. Which it still needs an oil change, but it's pretty snappy now. Listen at her. Not bad for sitting as long as it has. And just sit there and idle smooth. Of course, yeah, like I said, it does need an oil change still. Getting a little blow by probably because the oil is really thin at this point, but just wanted to kind of get it up to operating temperature. Let's see how things were looking. Looks like we puked a little coolant back out, but it's full and it's not leaking, it's flowing. The upper radiator hose is hot, the heater hoses are hot, but the lower hose is cooler, so we know that it's actually doing something. That's really good. I'm excited about that. I'm just gonna let it keep idling until it, you know, all the exhaust fully gets clear. I mean, it's still a little smoky on this side, but look how much stuff it's shot out all over the floor. It's everywhere. But it really does idle very nicely. It's starting to clear up though. I mean, yes, it still has some smoke, but it's way better than what it was. It doesn't look like oil smoke now. It might just be an incomplete burn at this point. But yeah, this thing was shooting junk all out of it, and finally it runs very well, idles very well. Nice. Love to see it. Absolutely love to see it. Smoky in here though. Well, a lot of work has happened. I got tired of having to cross it over with doing the ignition switch and getting up under the truck. So here's what I did. As you can see, we do have the original switch in here, but I think something's wrong with it. So when you crank it, it should send 12 volts to the starter solenoid, but it sends a ground. So I don't know why it's doing that. Maybe it's supposed to do that, but something in the wiring is messed up. So the only way I know how to convert a ground to a power, at least with what I had laying around, was with this relay. So we have a ground signal coming out of the ignition switch over to this relay. So, and also it had a 12 volt source, an extra one actually, that's constant hot. So we have a constant hot here plugged in. I just ran a jumper wire. And then we have the ground source coming from the switch. So whenever you turn the key to the crank position, this ground source will actually close the circuit on the relay. And then I took the factory power wire and ran it to the solenoid. And the funny thing is that the solenoid itself was wired wrong. It actually had that on the wrong terminal. So let's look up under here and you can show you what we did. So all I had to do was run that original wire and put it on the right side of the solenoid. So whenever this thing cranks, it actually will send a momentary 12 volt source right there, and it was on that side. But it should have been on the other side. So I swapped sides with the solenoid, so now it actually will crank off the key. And then to make the distributor work, I tied it in to a switch. So that same power source you saw coming off the ignition switch, I ran to this little toggle switch here. So I can arm the distributor like that and then shut it off like that. And I've wired the alternator in here for the exciter wire. I've got to figure out how to regulate it. So that's going to be a problem for another day. But at least whenever all this is working, I mean, I know it looks complicated, it's a little bit kind of weird, but it's really simple to make work. So if I turn the key on and then crank it, it runs. And that was a cold start too, so there's no temperature in the engine. Look at there. Sit there and run all day now. And if I want to shut it off, easy peasy. So now we have a working ignition switch and we can crank it. We've got a throttle lever hooked back up. So everything is inside the truck now. So it's no longer a complication to get this thing started and stopped. That is a big step in the right direction. And the fun thing about it is that I did all that stuff with just pieces and parts that are laying around that I had already. Because, I mean, you can buy a new ignition switch. One, I couldn't get the old ignition switch out of the dash. It was stuck. And two, it was like $30 for a brand new one. So I'm like, why don't we just make stuff with what we have? I had all the wiring, I had a relay, and I had that switch that was just all laying in the junk parts of wiring. So it cost me that much to make this thing run off of a key now. That's good. That's really good. So if we can figure out the charging system, we're on our way, and we have to wrap up the brakes so that way we can actually back this thing out and see what we have going on. I foresee this not being very fun to remove, but we're going to try it. Oh boy. Well, I'm glad you broke loose. Thank you. This is very kind of you. Come on out of there, buddy. Oh. Hey, at least it's still got some oil in it. It's good to see. Well, now here comes the hard part. That bearing is still in there, but really more than likely not going to slide out too well until the drum decides to move, unless I get like a magnet in there or something. It really don't matter at this point, but whew, here comes the fun, trying to get this thing to unseize from 55-inch wide drums. Golly, this is going to be tough. We've got the other side off on the passenger side rear, and thankfully everything was about the same. Look how thick the shoes are on this thing. I mean, it is perfect, totally reusable. The drums look great. Little surface rust, but we can easily polish that up, clean it up with the brake machine, and everything's gonna be all right. I feel we gotta really knock loose these adjusters. They are stuck, like bad stuck. Briar's working on the fronts right now. These things are massive, just big old truck drums. So hopefully they don't give him too much trouble, but I think it's gonna be fairly straightforward, I'm hoping. What do you think, Briar? How's it looking?
I spent the last 10 minutes trying to get the grease cap off, but hey, we're making progress.
Oh no, what happened? It was fighting you?
It was so full of junk between the drum and the cap itself, I had to get the pick and just clean it out. Because I couldn't get a grab on it with a screwdriver.
Dang. Well, at least it's, yeah, going in the right direction at this point. So
yes.
He's going to keep working on that, and we're going to see if we can get this thing to at least move under its own power. I'm curious to see how our clutch does. I just want to see if it has any functionality left in it at all. If it does, then we're on the straight track to making this thing go back on the road pretty easily.
Oh, come on.
Oh yeah, that's perfectly usable. Look at that. So it looks like, so those are still riveted. I don't know if the front ones or the rear ones weren't. So it looks like the rears might have been replaced at some point, but the front still have plenty of life left in them. They just have not been moved in years. Something was living inside of it, but the drums, they look really good. Yeah, that's very, I mean, that looks like it wasn't resurfaced very long ago.
No.
Well, at least before, as far as mileage is concerned, but yeah, that's perfect. We've got a lot of good stuff going on here. Last but not least, we're going to see how difficult is our brakes going to be today. Oh no. Ta-da! See, these aren't riveted. Oh yeah, they are. They look pretty good. There's still a lot of meat left on the bone. Just wheel cylinders and a good cleanup. Get the adjusters working. We're all right. How's that look?
Great.
Yes, perfect. All right, well, I feel better about that then. Well, we do have a lot of work ahead of us, but we do have everything disassembled. The wheel cylinders were disgusting. Let me show you what this one looked like right here. It was bad. All of them look pretty much like this. This one actually might be better than most of them, but as you can see, it is packed full of rust. So you can rebuild these, but as cheap as they are, I mean, there's no shot of even wanting to rebuild those. As much labor is trying to get that all apart and cleaned up and then hoping it works. So what we're going to do is replace them. We have all new wheel cylinders, brake hoses, wheel seals, and that's pretty much it. That's all you need. Because of our shoes being good, our drums being good, we're just going to replace all the hydraulic pieces. So as you can see, I've already assembled the fronts. I've got the pins in this one. I'm about to put the pins in this one. Here's our two rears, and then we've got the brake hose that goes to the rear of the truck as well. So we have everything hydraulically to make this thing stop, hopefully. I really, really, really hope. We also have a master cylinder as well. It's up under the hood. We'll put that on in a second, but I was really kind of waiting on these seals to come in because I didn't want to do everything and then not be able to put it together. So we've got everything in the shop, and we've got a nice workbench with a 69 Charger. So let's get this thing put back together. here we are, the maiden voyage, at least to the driveway. All right, switch is on. You gotta hit it just right with that relay. I think the switch is bad. Well, obviously it's bad, but it's worse than you would expect. All right, reverse. Ooh, clutch is moving. Oh, power steering works. Brakes don't work at all. We've been having trouble with bleeding them, and we think that the brake booster is at fault, but we're still going to back it out and just see if we can attempt to clean it up. I don't have mirrors on this thing. They welded up the holes and then bondoed it up, so I can't even see where I'm going. Just test forward. Oh, good. Sucker's low. The brakes don't work at all.
Oh gosh.
Oh gosh. See, look.
Oh.
Well, oh. They kind of work.
Barely.
But if you have any slightly any momentum at all, watch.
Nothing. Zilch.
It's bad. And we even tightened them up pretty good. They only work at the very bottom. What do you just have to mash it really hard.
I'm sure that's safe, right?
Why is it trying to kill me? Oh gosh. A giant 1-ton truck, for sure. It's always good to have zero brakes at all. Yeah, you don't need any of that. Oh, it's trying to murder me with its fumes. Well,
There it
there
is.
you go. It's outside. Oh gosh, we get a lot of work ahead of us, don't we?
A little bit, yes.
Well, thankfully, we just acquired this truck here. If you remember this one from the Valiant video, this is a 1-ton dually, but it's a little newer than what we're working with, but the brake booster seems to work pretty well. This truck does have disc brakes on the front, but I don't think it's going to matter. I don't know, to be honest with you. I'm hoping it doesn't, but we're going to pull it off and just see if it works fine. I mean, the diaphragm actually sounded good, like you heard air like it's supposed to do, and it returned like it's supposed to do, no hard spots in the pedal. So Briar's going to pull that off. We'll trade the boosters around and just hope and pray that it actually works, because if not, we can't drive it. And I really want to drive my truck. Fortunately, this never would have worked. Here's the old booster. Here's the new booster. This one actually has a rod that comes up pretty far, and I don't know where it went. I actually lost it, but check out the diameter differences as well. So again, I mentioned that this was for a disc brake, and this one is for drums in the front. But look at the way that this is actually like pushes against the master cylinder. So this one actually pushes against the very back of the plunger. This one has to go inside the master cylinder to push against the plunger. So a rod is much longer. And this brake booster sits way further off the firewall than this one does. So we did all that work for nothing. So this booster was actually bad. So I bought a brand new one. They actually make these still, which was surprising. And I got it from O'Reilly, and it was for a drum front truck. So that was very fortunate. So we replaced that, and the brakes actually work. So regardless, it's okay. You know, the brakes are good now, but it was what we suspected. So once we replaced that, this thing stops on a dime, honestly. So it's much better now. Now you guys know me. You know I love a good patina car. You know I like to have stuff that's original because it tells a story, and sometimes I just don't have the time to paint stuff. It's expensive, it's time consuming, and you just can't do it to every single car. Now this one is going to be the exception. I've never actually used a paint gun before, like a legit setup. I've always just rattle canned stuff and just spray painted it whenever I did paint vehicles. Like the police car behind me, I did all that with spray paint. And it turns out pretty good half the time, but there's a lot of room for error basically. So this time I'm gonna try and learn how to paint a car with an actual paint gun and compressor setup. So I figured this truck would be a perfect time to kind of figure some stuff out and learn some technique. Now, this truck, it's not perfect. The body work on it, it's got some good dents in the side. You know, it's got Bondo, it's got some rust in it. But here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna sand it, we're gonna make it kind of smooth, and we're gonna get all the rust out of it. But we're gonna not focus too much on making it perfect, because we could spend at least 2 or 3 weeks on going through every single little dent and wrinkle in this body and every single tiny spot of rust. We could really just spend so much time on it. We don't really have that much time on it, and this truck's gonna get used for truck stuff, so we just wanna learn the process. I'm here to teach myself on this one, so I really wanna have a good canvas to kind of learn how to do something that I don't normally get to do. So this truck's perfect for it. So this is what we're gonna make happen. I'm gonna sand the truck down, we're gonna paint it with some tractor implement paint, and we're gonna learn the basics. Why not? Because there's some vehicles I would really like to paint, but I've been too scared to do it because I've never done it before. So no time like the present. Let's get this thing sanded down so we can start painting. So we have been sanding on this thing for probably 2 days at this point. We've gone over it with 60 grit, 80 grit, 120, and we're about to go over it with some of this 2-in-1 filler and sandable primer from Duplicolor, because we've got some bare metal spots, some pitting here and there. We're not doing this thing to be perfect. We're doing this thing to be better, and we just wanted to get it one color. Not going to spend a ton of time on body work. I mean, there's going to be some dents and scratches in it. We just wanted to get it to where it looked better, because this thing, I mean, it was honestly ugly with all the different primer spots and paint just being bad. So I wanted to make it at least uniform in one color. So that's exactly what we're gonna do. But this bedside is pretty good. So you can see these pitting spots. I'm hoping this filler primer can kind of help some of that. This bedside looks probably the best as far as straightness, but it had a good skim coat of Bondo. And that was a nightmare because it wasn't finished. It wasn't prepped. And I had to go through and sand out all the different tiny little air pockets and air bubbles that I found. That took forever. But it's very smooth now. I don't really feel any bumps or spots in it anymore. It seems like it's gonna be good. There were some dents that got filled in with Bondo. I just took them back out. I mean, they were cracked. Water had gotten in behind it. There's gonna be a dent in the fender. Don't care. It's gonna be a work truck. So I went ahead and coated the whole thing with that filler primer and sanded on it. So it looks pretty good now. Everything seems to be very smooth. This bedside is gonna look really good, especially with the fact that it's gonna be the most obvious spot that's been painted. So, you know, it looks much better than what it was. At least to have it uniform helps so much, because that's what it was before, after. Before, after. I like it a lot. So that means that we have to do the rest of the truck at least in some spots, but it's better. And then when we go back and paint the whole thing with our primer, we've got a good foundation to start with, and it should look pretty good in the long run. So great news. I went to pull the grill and got everything loose. And as you can tell, the bumper's been pushed backwards and it's really high on this side. So it's really awkward to get the grill out of there. I went to pull it backwards and there's a support bar. It drives right into the core of the radiator and I bust the radiator. It was perfectly fine. Nothing wrong with it. So now I have to get a new radiator. I don't know, man. Like, this is the last thing I was doing tonight and I busted the dang radiator. That's a bummer. That is an absolute bummer, especially when there was nothing wrong with it and it was perfectly fine. It's just the tiniest little spot too, right there. Just nicked it, which it looks like there might have been another spot right here that's been fixed. So I don't even know if I could fix that, to be honest with you. I don't know, man, that bums me out. I cannot believe that. You can see I just tried to shove some JB Weld up in there and it didn't help. I guess once it gets down to low enough, at least below this, and stays dry. I don't have any water weld on me. I just had some quick weld. So we tried that and it wouldn't work. But if the level gets lower than that, maybe I could JB Weld that back together, because it's just right there is where I hit it. But otherwise, it is painting time. The bed looks great. The cab looks great. The hood looks great. The fenders look very well. I couldn't get these dang emblems off because the fender liner wouldn't come out. So that had to stay. I got to figure out what to do about the gap on the bumper here. Might just tie it to a tree and just yank. We're going to paint these bumpers though, so they don't look as bad. This fender looks great. This side is probably the best side, so you can kind of see what we're working with here. We have some Magic brand Town & Country primer. Now we're going to be using their primer and some white paint. This is implement paint. It's cheap. It's easy to use apparently. I'm trying to learn the process, so we don't want to spend a ton of money on paint that we are going to ruin. Because if I mess it up, then I'm not out, but like a little bit of dollars.
Not much.
Not much. So forgive me for not knowing everything about this. I'm really just trying to learn. So just don't hate me for my process. So we're going to be mixing up a little bit of paint mixed with some reducer here that I've got, the Magic brand here. And we will be spraying it with my little Harbor Freight gun. And again, I've never actually used a paint gun. I've always just spray painted cars. So I'm learning, Briar.
We're evolving in the world.
we're devolving, but backwards.
Yes.
Someone said online it needed to be double the consistency of water. I don't know what that means. So that looks like thick water. Thick gray water.
I mean, that means we have to drink it, right? And then drink water right behind it?
Yes.
Just be able to tell?
Disclaimer, all these jokes about drinking paint are jokes. Please don't sue me. I don't know if that looks good.
It's a good fan. It looks a little thin to me, but...
A little thin? So how do I fix that? Is that too much air, you think?
Oh, it's leaking. I told you.
Oh.
I knew it. Just like a carburetor.
How does that look?
About the same.
Maybe I should read the instructions.
Oh,
Does that look better?
that looks a little thicker. Well, I don't know. I think I'm making up stuff at this point.
I don't know nothing. I'm so confused.
Are you just doing one coat?
Huh?
You just doing one coat?
I'll do two. At least two.
Yeah, so it could be light then, both times.
I'm terrified. I don't know if this is gonna work, but I'm gonna try it anyway. I have to ignore the sound of the rain. It's coming a pretty good flood out right now, but I've got the second and final coat of primer done, and I think I figured out a few things that were wrong with my first coat that was kind of bothering me. So whenever I got done, you could probably see where I would start and stop on every single pass, and I was going too fast, and also the coats were a little too thin on the back side. I kind of started to figure it out towards the front, but you could see where I started and stopped. So as I was spraying, I would spray, stop, spray, stop, instead of trying to feather it through. And I figured that out on the second coat, I think, because you can't tell where I started and stopped on this coat. And it actually turned out a lot better. So once I figured that out, I kind of got the rhythm and the motion of it. I really wanted to figure that out before I did the actual top coat, because that would have been bad. But that looks a lot better in my opinion. This primer turned out so much better on this round just because I felt a little more confident, started to get things a little figured out. And on top of that, I think I had my gun settings were just a little bit off. So I started out at, I think, 30 PSI, but the box, the instructions said to do at least 40 to 45 PSI. So I increased the pressure, got my settings a little bit better, and you know, kind of messed around with each thing, and it seemed to spray a lot better this go around, and I feel more confident, like I said. So this coat, much nicer. So we're gonna let this dry overnight. It's like 11 o'clock right now, so let this kind of do its thing and settle. We'll come out here and give it a good scuff, and then it's time for the top coat. You can see the hood has a little bit of striping in it, but I think it's gonna even out. Looks like where it started already dry, you can see it leveling out. It did it on the first coat, so I don't see anything that's gonna be wrong with it. But gosh, it looks cool looking one color, you know. It's really nice to see it all uniform, because that was a lot of work. And now you start to see the dents in the body, but again, I just wanted to learn how to do it. So when we actually go and do legit body work on something that we really want to make look good, I'll at least have a bit more confidence going in. It's time to paint. Gosh, this is what it's all come down to. We have spent so much time on this. I'm nervous, I'm excited, and I cannot wait to see how this thing turns out when it's all said and done. So without further ado, let's get to spraying. All right, first coat's done. I definitely learned a lot for the technique, that's for sure. So right out the gate on the first pass right here, laid it on way too heavy, and I got to run right there and right there. It's probably hard to see on camera, but it's not terrible right there, and at least it's like in a kind of inconspicuous place. We can fix that. The rest of it laid down pretty good, and then I got to run right there and then right there. So we'll have to go back and fix that. But the worst part the one I was worried about really the most was the hood, and it laid down very nicely. Still, it's, you know, thin because it's just the first coat, so you can kind of see some striping, but look at the reflection in the paint there. That looks good. Like, I'm proud of that. I'm not gonna, you know, toot my own horn or nothing or brag, but I am pretty proud of that, just because the first time I've ever done this, and the hood was giving me trouble with the primer, trying to keep it from striping, and that's the part you're gonna see the most looking out the windshield. That one laid down very nicely. And then on this side, I didn't see any runs yet, but not to say that I hadn't any come up, but I don't see any, and it looks pretty good. I went a little bit lighter on this side just because I was a little bit worried, and it's kind of darker here. Look, the lighting's weird with the window being like that. So you can see, you really see it on camera. It's hard to see it in person, but on camera you can see how thin it is in some places. It's gonna need some work, but that's what we're here for. We're learning how to fix those bugs, but I'm gonna let this dry. We're probably gonna have to go back and sand these runs out. I think I should do it before I do the second coat. I don't know how that really applies. I would think that you would want to get the runs out before you put more paint on top of it, but I'm gonna do a little research and just double check, make sure my logic is not flawed. and then I'm gonna have to go through and sand out some of these. It's hard to see, but there's some debris. Look at that. Don't that just bum me out, especially on white? Like I've done 2 coats of primer, not a single bit of problem for stuff flying out, and then all of a sudden I do one, and yes, it just flies everywhere. And then you can really kind of see the dents that we left. But again, we're just trying to practice. This is a work truck, most importantly, but we want it to look good and look exactly like it's supposed to. And the second coat is dry, and honestly it does not look bad at all. We were having some problems with a little bit of dry spray where the paint was like drying as it was coming out. I don't really know what happened. I didn't change any of my gun settings. I have no idea. So that was kind of a weird thing last night, but it did lay down pretty nicely. You know, it still has a nice gloss to it. And you know, that's all this stuff can be wet sanded and buffed real good. And you know, that's the thing, we can fix any imperfections. It's gonna have to do a lot of sitting before we can even do that. Overall, it looks really good compared to what it was. That's what I was looking at last night. I was like, man, I was, you know, stressing over some of these imperfections, and I thought, compared to what this truck started out as, this is night and day difference. Ladies and gentlemen, there it is. The truck is all cleaned up. Got her outside, and I gotta say, she's got a nice little shine to her. I'm really loving it. So what I've done in the meantime was I actually went and painted the bumpers and put all the marker lights back in. I painted the wheels silver to match the grill, which I'll show you in a second. And I had these tires laying around. These are 235/85s Goodyear Wranglers. They came off of another vehicle, so I went ahead and just put them back on. Put the gas cap back on, pulled the tape off, painted the rockers black because they're rusted out. Painted the fender emblems with the GMC black. So we got a nice combo of black, white, and silver. Painted the front bumper in black. You know, the chrome wasn't good, so I went ahead and just painted it black. Actually did some bed liner, so all the texture and bad spots are hidden. Pulled the grill off as you saw, and then I painted it silver because again, it was rusty. Got all that put back on. And I gotta admit, man, I'm pretty proud of it. It's not perfect by any means, but when you come out here and look at this thing, you're like, wow, that's a heck of a lot better than what it started off with. So when you see this thing actually in person, you're gonna be like, nah, it's not perfect, but golly, does it not look just so much nicer. It's shiny, which is weird for me to own a vehicle that shines. And the hood probably is the best of the whole thing. It's dirty, it's already got stuff like specks on it, but just look at the shine. I mean, there is a lot of room for improvement. You do see some specks and dirt in the paint. There's some orange peel. You know, again, I'm still learning the process, and I think I can do much better the next go around. But again, this is something that could be sanded and then buffed. Good polish on it would really help. But compared to where we started, I mean, this is a night and day difference. So I'm very happy with the end result of this truck. I can't complain one bit. And it honestly, it looks good. Like, it's a good looking truck now. You know, I never thought this thing would actually be a nice looking vehicle, but here we are. You know, I was really just kind of I didn't think it would be good. Like, honestly, I thought like, this thing's gonna look like a piece of garbage, because whenever I first got it, my whole goal was like, it would look so good just to paint this thing and get it all one color and give it a little respect that it deserves. I know I didn't do a lot of body work on it, but at least it is nicer. It is so much nicer, in fact, that I'm proud of it. I'm used to doing rattle can paint jobs and, you know, having striping in the paint left over, having dry spots here and there. But overall, I mean, after 3 coats of white, this thing really did come together. Again, there's some orange peel that can be buffed out, but for my first actual time using a spray gun, an actual legit paint gun, not bad. Not bad at all. Well, this is the first real drive of the truck. 1995?
Yes.
Isn't that crazy?
A long time ago.
And test the brakes. Oh yeah, brake booster fixed that. Isn't it? That's crazy. GM brake boosters, I've never had trouble with any other ones, but GM brake boosters, every car I've ever done, they always fall apart. Never ceases to amaze me.
It's always something.
It's always something. Get a load of this windshield we're dealing with. So we have tried everything fixing this windshield. We have scrubbed it with a razor blade. I've scrubbed it with a brush. I've pressure washed it. Something is wrong with this thing. It's like the outside of it is scratched or something. I don't know what happened. It's almost like it got sandblasted or something. I wonder if they sandblasted the truck or something, or sanded the whole truck and then they just let this go. It will not come off, whatever it is. So you really can't see that great. So this truck's gonna have to get a windshield, which is unfortunate. I really wish I had noticed that before. We just didn't wash it, so I was like, it's just dirty. But I scrubbed and scrubbed. It's not, you can't feel it on the inside or outside. So it's either etched or it's like the inside of the 2 layers is coming apart. So you really can't enjoy how nice and shiny your hood is.
But you can hear how rackety it is.
Yeah, it's very rackety. He's noisy. We're in a granny gear, 4-speed, and I'm in second. This is your starting off gear. You really could, I wonder if we could start off in 4th gear. Things geared. Let's see.
Yes.
Yes, you can. That's not bad.
No.
It rides very smooth. I mean, it rides like a 1-ton truck, but that's not bad at all. The steering is pretty tight. Power steering works great. I wonder, this thing's got to be screaming though. I mean, I'm sure it's like a ton of RPM, but it's not wobbling, and the alignment's really nice on it. I mean, it looks like a really solid old truck. And now that we have some good paint on it, it's got a lot of more potential to it, I believe. The brakes are fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. You don't have to downshift. You just let it go. Leave it in 4th and you're done. I love this thing. Yeah, this is good. This is really good. No speedometer. The fuel gauge is like past full. It's not charging, or at least the gauge isn't saying it is. The temp gauge does work and the oil pressure gauge works, so I guess that's really all you need.
Yes.
You can charge a battery, so that's not a big deal. And I don't know, man, it's pretty cool to know that Dad drove this when he was a kid. He said he used to drive this truck before he really even got his license, so it's pretty neat to be able to have this thing back in the family and looking better. I mean, the truck looks like a respectable truck now. Before, it just looked like camouflage going wrong. And now it's all one color. It's shiny, it's usable, it's dependable, and I really like it. The more we mess with it, the more I realize, man, this thing is actually a really good foundation for a sweet truck. And we've got that. Now we do need to obviously do some stuff with the interior, but I really just wanted the outside to look good. And the seat's not bad, it's pretty comfortable. It just probably could use a dash pad, it could clean in some paint here and there. But for what it is, I'm pretty proud of it. She's smoking like crazy behind us. And we blew out the soot on that one. Yeah. Man, that's good. I mean, it didn't hesitate at all.
No.
That's a good carburetor right there. Yeah. I get why people love these spread-port carburetors. I am a big fan, personally. The thermoglostic quadrojets, you can't beat that sound. This thing, man, this is a good truck. I'm so glad we finally got this thing out. Mechanically and paint-wise too, it's really not bad.
I see you pick someone up.
That's my old pal, Dixie. She likes riding in it. She loves a good truck ride, don't you, Buck? Yeah. That's a good girl. Let's see how low first gear is on this thing.
I don't think you want to ride in here.
I can't walk faster than this thing. That's pretty good.
It's pretty low.
Makes you wonder what kind of gear it's got. I would bet like a 456.
You know, something stupid.
With a granny gear, that's game. Oh, is she hopping a little bit? Oh hey.
Oh hey.
That's it. That's basically it right there.
Oh!
She'll spin a little bit. No need to throw a drive shaft. Not yet, at least. It appears we have sprung a leak. So I need to fix that. Look, it's coming all the way out here.
No!
That's where stupid me, busted a hole in the dang radiator. So I need to JB weld that again. I JB welded one spot. You can see where I did one. And I painted it black. But then this other spot over here, I guess it hadn't dried fully and it needs to get another spot done on it, but oh well. At least it's not out of coolant. You know, it's such a slow leak, you know.
Oh, you'll know when it's out.
Yeah, you'll definitely know. That's going to do it for today's video, folks. The GMC 3500 Longhorn 1-ton single wheel. Don't forget that, single wheel. It's finally looking very presentable. I'm very proud of how this thing turned out. It is by no means perfect, but gosh, does it look so much better. It is a respectable farm and shop truck now, and I'm very happy to see where this thing goes from here. Now it does need some work. It's going to need a windshield, clean up the interior, probably going to need a starter, probably going to need a radiator, but other than that, if you fix all those things, it's a very good truck, and I'm so happy to see this thing back on the road, and I just am excited that it is still in the McCool family after all this time. So if you enjoyed this video, make sure you go down to the link in the description below. T-shirts and stickers are down there. Don't forget to order that, because all that money goes directly back into stuff like this and putting vehicles back on the road where they deserve. On top of that, make sure you go like this video, subscribe, turn on the notifications so you don't miss out on more content just like this. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.